All right, episode 451 is brought to you by our friends over at Thrive Market. I can't recommend this website highly enough. We've had so many people write in and tell us that they are so thankful that we told them about this website. Thrive Market's awesome because it's kind of like a Costco sort of membership where you pay a yearly fee just like Costco, but the deal is you get 25 to 50% off all of your items. So if you compare the prices at Thrive to any other website that you buy your health food items at now, you'll find you save so much money at Thrive. It's unbelievable. So what I like about it too is that you can shop by a bunch of different filters. You can filter how you want to look at your products. So they have different filters like organic. You can shop just organic food, or paleo, or gluten-free, or raw, or vegan. And so it's awesome because they also have 3,000 different products on their site with new items being added every day. They have 400 different brands. So most likely the brands that you already buy on other websites are on there. And it's 25 to 50% off for retail, which is awesome. And also, if you go through our link, you'll get 15% off your first order plus free shipping. So go through our link and you'll get 15% off and free shipping on your first order. And it's just an awesome website. I can't recommend them highly enough. And we're also brought to you by the Relax Far Infrared Sauna. I would highly recommend looking into purchasing one of these things, because what I love about them is that it's a portable sauna and you don't have to knock down walls in your house. They break down super easy. I love it. We've had ours for about 4 years now, and I do it every single day, about probably 5 to 6 days a week or more, 7 days a week. You detoxify chemicals, heavy metals, poisons that get stored in your fat cells. So it's an awesome way to detoxify on a daily basis. And it just feels amazing. It's great for weight loss, circulation, improving lymphatic flow. And also what's cool too is that it boosts your immune system by increasing heat shock proteins by, some people say, up to 40%. So if you want to learn more and listen to the videos that Dr. Rhonda Patrick did about far infrared sauna therapy and how beneficial that is, or if you want to watch the video Dr. Brian Clement did, or listen to our shows with Phil Wilson, go over to that website, or actually that page on our website, and you can listen to those and watch those and learn more about this awesome sauna. It's low EMF and it's amazing. So if you want the Thrive Market or if you want the sauna, go to extremehealthradio.com/451. All right. Happy Monday morning to everybody, but I'm sure people that are listening on a podcast, it's probably some other day. It could be Friday, it could be Saturday. We don't know.
Happy any day.
Happy any day.
Every day.
Happy every day.
But this is a good way to start a Monday for us.
That's true.
I love it.
Well, we're going to have a great show today. I'm really excited to have Shonagh Home on the show, and I'm not sure how we connected up with her, but she's doing some awesome work. And I have to share this with the audience before we get started, but as you know, Kate, I've been diving in the world of mushrooms lately. Simply research with nothing experimental, and learning a lot about mushrooms, primarily during my time when I do the rebounder and the sauna. I'll watch a lot of documentaries and things. I've been really learning a lot about.
You've sucked me into your world. Man, is it fascinating.
Oh,
it's
man.
Fascinating stuff.
Really interesting. So this is going to be a great show. Let's see. This is episode 451. So if you want to listen to the show on the website itself, you can do that at extremehealthradio.com/451. And is that about it? As far as...
I think so.
That's about it, right? Okay. Cool. We have Shonagh Home on the show today. She's an author, shamanic practitioner, teacher, and speaker. She also is a honeybee stewardess, a honeybee steward, and this is an interesting word, an apitherapist, administering bee venom therapy to people with MS for arthritis. She teaches the shamanic arts and endeavors to take her students beyond cultural mass trance and into the territory of the sacred. She's got a great website, shonaghhome.com. Now, her name is spelled SHONAGH home.com, and her books are Honeybee Wisdom, Modern Melissa Speaks, Love and Spirit Medicine, which is one we have. I'm really excited to start reading this one. And let me just share the beginning of that one. It says, a sweeping hero's journey into the mythic realms and magical healing of mushroom shamanism.
Wow.
Sounds good, doesn't it?
Yeah, especially since we're so interested in this lately. It's perfect timing.
It says it's a call to the free-spirited ones who favor the less trodden pathways of spiritual exploration.
Nice.
I have nothing against that.
Bring it on.
Nothing wrong with that. So let's bring Shonagh on. Thank you so much, Shonagh, for being on the show today.
Oh, thank you both for having me. This is very exciting.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Yeah.
Now, I want to say that you're up in Northern California or Oregon. Am I correct on that, or am I way off?
Well, I'm in the Pacific Northwest, so I am just outside of Seattle in a place called Redmond.
Oh,
so, yeah, that's where Microsoft is. So, perhaps an opposing force to to all of that.
You and Bill Gates aren't the best of friends, huh?
Well, whatever. Just have different opinions. A difference of opinion.
Yeah.
We've been through Redmond. We have family in Woodinville, so.
Oh, you do?
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
wonderful.
We love that
Okay,
area.
great.
It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Have you been up there for a long time?
I've been here since 2001. So I moved here from the East Coast.
Oh, my
Ooh,
goodness.
a little different, huh?
Yeah. It was, I write about that in the book. I was living in New York City. I was there for almost 20 years. And then I got dragged. I wrote kicking and screaming to Seattle.
Oh, my goodness.
And now I absolutely love it here. You couldn't get me to leave.
So what were you doing in New York City that precipitated the move across the country?
My husband at the time decided to start his own business here. So I was, interestingly, I was an interior designer in New York. I'd attended Parsons, and a friend of mine pointed out recently, you were an interior designer, and actually you still are an interior designer.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that so true?
That's funny.
Who knew?
Wow.
Who knew? Oh my goodness. I am, 53. I would never in my wildest dreams have thought that I would be doing the kind of work that I am doing today. It's way fun. I'll take this over sort of the quote unquote norm.
Oh, yeah. Now, when you were in New York City, were you, looking back, now that you're living where you're living and doing the kind of work that you're doing, looking back, were you very stressed and fast paced and all of that kind of lifestyle?
In New York?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's changed so much, I must say, because when I lived there in my early 20s, I lived in the East Village and I worked in the restaurant business, and I was an actress and a dancer, and and so it was a different pace, if you will. And then I met my husband when I was around 29, and then went to Parsons and did interior design. And I must say, actually, I've always really worked for myself. Or at least kind of done things more my way. Like I just couldn't work for AT&T or, whatever.
Right.
I just could not go that route. And so then we moved to Seattle, and I did think that everyone in Seattle was in a kind of walking coma when I first got here.
Why?
Wow.
Just because they were so slow paced?
Yeah, it was a very different pace from New York, and I was just pissed off. I was not happy being here in the first place. So,
Wow.
I really had a lot of biases that were very quickly diminished because I ended up getting divorced, and then just things changed as they were, I think, really meant to do, and that. When my marriage ended, I was 40 and I was the mother of 2 young girls, and I never ever thought that would be the case for me. And it really threw me into deep study. It's like that midlife face slap that I find people are getting younger and younger these days, where a crisis shows up for them. And I like to play with words, and I always say, well, do you see the Isis in crisis? And I'm speaking of Isis, that beautiful Egyptian mother archetype. So yeah, that was a crisis, and it sent me into a deep, I guess you could say, spiritual study. That word is so overused, but I found my way to some very excellent teachers, and eventually came into kind of shamanic exploration, and I write about that in the book as well, Love and Spirit Medicine. And so I did that for a number of years, 7 or 8 years. I mean, I still do, obviously. Mm-hmm. And then it wasn't until 5 years ago that I began an exploration into I call it a portal of the sacred mushroom, psilocybin mushroom. And I speak very candidly about that because my experience was so profound. And my book, Love and Spirit Medicine, is the only book out there right now that is a woman's telling of what became a year of monthly deep shamanic journeys outside in nature, primarily high doses, which I don't recommend for everybody, especially for starting out, but that's what I did. And so there you are.
How high of a dose did you take?
Well, I did it a la Terence McKenna.
Oh, yeah. I've been learning a lot of that.
So Mr. McKenna advocates 5 dried grams lying down in the dark, in silent darkness. And so I did that, but out in the rainforest of the Olympic Peninsula.
Oh, my goodness. So what does that equate to in terms of mushrooms? 5 grams, is that 5 individual mushrooms, or how does that?
No, it's a handful of dried mushrooms that has to be measured out. Always good to measure the doses, Mr. McKenna would say.
Yes,
I'm sure.
And I must say, first of all, preface this because I have put myself out there as an older feminine voice for the reverent, the respectful use of this incredible, I call it a medicine. Some people call it a sacrament. It's really both. Because, I had a good 8 years behind me of solid psycho-spiritual study before I even did that. And I also do not drink and I do not do recreational substances, if you will. So my only approach to this was with humility and then kind of a state of just great respect and curiosity. And so what really ended up happening, because that was calling me, the mushroom was calling me, and I did it in the rainforest with a dear friend of mine. And then I had a very profound healing where the earth spoke to me and sort of called up a very old wound of mine where I was adopted, and I always sort of figured in my mind that I was a mistake, know.
Yeah.
And that thought came to me towards the end of that journey, and to my surprise, the earth kind of opened up and said, "My daughter, you are no mistake." And it's one thing for us to sort of hear that story. It's quite another to be in a very expanded state and have that direct connection with something very profound and mysterious. And so when I got home from that, I had a series of synchronistic events occur, and I was called back to the forest to do it again the following month. And more things happened, and then I had to go back the following month. And so what I realized occurred here is I think of it as an initiation by nature, from nature, because there was no shaman to guide me.
The mushroom was your shaman.
Yeah. And so I really apprenticed myself to the mushroom teachers. And so that went on for a year, and it was cumulative. And I ended up having experiences where nature beings would actually come in to my body. There would be a temporary possession, kind of a meeting of the minds, if you will, and they would impart wisdom. And I later, in my research, because I love to research these things, discovered that is probably one of the oldest forms of shamanism. And that has long been the domain of women. And so we can think of the oracles at Delphi and Dodona and the Volva, V-O-L-V-A, who were oracles in the Norse tradition. And so all these women of the ancient world who would imbibe a psychoactive substance that would take them into a very high trance state, and then they would connect to the invisible worlds, and they would impart prophecy, guidance, that kind of thing for the people of their community.
And that seems to make a lot of sense, because even now, people will say, "Oh, women are more intuitive than men," and so that would make a lot of sense. How often were you going into the forest? Like you said, once a month, and for how long each time?
Okay, so I had a good friend who lives up there, and so I would go stay with him for, the weekend, 2 or 3 days. And So yeah. And so that was July, August, September, October, November, December. And we actually became romantically involved. Mm-hmm. And this was, I write about okay, let me say, so my book it's a very vulnerable woman's telling on what happens to just my story, a woman who in midlife, her marriage is basically over, the end of her marriage, and then gets involved with a very dear friend. And I've always judged that kind of thing harshly because I've never done that before. And so I write about that in the book as well. Covers quite a lot. And then, this evolutionary period of a year of, what happens when you throw monthly 5 grammars. And I always joke that, there aren't too many middle-aged ladies in the suburbs, going out into the forest and doing 5 grams at night.
Not happening very often, huh?
No, but, this is another piece too that I am very clear on, that, we're raised in this society. It's a construct, mm-hmm. but it's artificial. We're living in a very unnatural state right now. And so this for me was really like a soul's calling and a kind of training, shamanic training. And I answered that. And the soul doesn't care a fig what the rules of the day may or may not be. It wants to evolve. And so, without realizing that necessarily at the time, I mm-hmm. just heeded that call and continued to go in. And then I began writing about it because I was having these just extraordinary experiences. And I will say it's one thing to, work with that medicine or sacrament in like your high-rise apartment in, LA or New York. And that can be extraordinary. And then it's quite another to be out in nature. And that is a very different frequency altogether.
So when you're out in nature, what did you do? Did you stay the night in the woods or?
Yeah. Often I would stay the night in the woods. I mean, we were in a very secluded, secure, safe area. Okay. And, it was absolutely beautiful. Moss covered trees. And I mean, it was right out of, like a fairy tale. It's really quite
gosh.
Wow. Yeah. So and then I did it a few times, of course, indoors as well. Beyond that,
did you notice a difference between being indoors, like you just said? That there is a difference, but did you notice a difference?
Yeah. Well, I have to say, those first 6 months or so with this person, it was always outside until December. And so, it was very sort of a different feel being inside. And then he ended that very abruptly and rather cruelly. Mm. And so, which was essential. He was a catalytic force in my life. Mm-hmm. And I really do see, people who you have these difficult experiences with serve as some very fine teachers. And so then January, I was just bereft. And that was my first time entering into the medicine by myself, which was that's a very big initiation. And not only that, because I was so despondent, that's actually a really powerful way to greet initiation, because all of your defenses are gone and you're stripped bare. And in fact, when I did the medicine, as I felt it kicking in, I said, please be gentle. I come to you with no skin left, just my broken heart. Now, I will preface that by saying that doing these journeys, I was experiencing connections with owls constantly. Owls flying over us when we were working with the medicine, owls hooting in the forest. And then I would run in the morning, and lo and behold, there were owls all over my neighborhood. And so then a dear friend who's Native American called me out of the blue and gifted me the tail of a snowy white owl that had been bequeathed to her. And
you got to expect that, right?
Right. And that arrived the day that I went in by myself in January. And so I called that being in, and then lo and behold, she came, and the entire journey was this profound, the kind of classic shamanic initiation, right? Where that spirit comes to you and gives you your name and works with you and initiates you. And so, and then beyond that, it was, just continued deep work and continued healing of my own peace. And Terence McKenna once said, if you're one of those people who doesn't want to look at that and sure as hell won't look at that, then the mushroom's not for you, because it will bring that into your awareness.
Wow.
And in my case, that's what happened. It took me into my deepest wound, which as an adopted kid would be abandonment, and made me really go into that, go into the mystery of that, go into how that served, and move past it. And I think at this time where we're at, it is very important for us individually to heal within, to really clean up our own backyard and get past that as best we can, because people, I find, are so damaged these days, and then we form a collective, and the collective is damaged, and all you have to do is just sort of look at what is presented to us in our media on every level, and it's, I think, deplorable.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's also addictive too. So that's another issue with this is addiction to media, addiction to the news stories, addiction to friends who are disempowering, and addiction to your own thoughts as well that do all of the above.
Right, which is also why I put myself out as a voice for this respectful use of the mushroom, because it can help tremendously. It is not for everyone. It is truly not for everyone. But it's also, like everything that sort of enters into Western culture, we have no touchstone for this kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so it gets profaned. And so, and there, of course, there's plenty of people who've had amazing experiences with these, and they were with a group of people and they were at a party or whatever. But, and I would just simply say, and there is another approach where you can go into a beautiful place in nature to commune with that frequency, if you will. And we're right now steeped in the frequency of Wi-Fi and electromagnetic everything. And when you go into nature, it's very stabilizing. And we know that, people back in the day would take walks. They spent lots of time in nature. If you were irritated or gotten an argument or something, you go for a walk.
Go out and get in the forest.
Walk it off.
Walk it off.
Yeah.
Think about things.
Makes you feel better.
Yeah. Have you, I wouldn't imagine this would be the case, but you never know, since you approach the mushroom with so much reverence and respect. Have you ever had a bad, trip?
Yeah.
You have?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I don't think of those as so much as, we call them bad trips, but medicine doesn't always taste good going down.
Right.
It all serves, and I wrote about that in the book as well. And that occurred in December when I was with this friend of mine, and some other opportunistic element, shall we say, spirit entered into the fray and made a mess, and it was awful. It was absolutely awful, and it shifted things markedly with us. And at the same time, after that happened, I went in like, okay, what was the teaching here? Because I called in my protection, and I saw my protection, my guides, and so there was a deep, deep teaching there. And then down a few months down the road, I had another piece where I went into all my own sort of shadow stuff on the medicine, and oh my God. So yeah, that can happen. Okay, and so here's the deal. So the ancients, whether they were in temples or mystery schools or groves or whatnot, they would train. They would train for a good while in the mysteries before they would work with something like this. Mm-hmm. There's no question. And so, again, we don't have a reference point. And all I can say for myself is that I am deeply grateful that I had those 8 years behind my belt of that kind of study. And I worked with a teacher, Brew Joy, who was a master teacher. He was a Johns Hopkins trained MD, which I would, how did that happen? But he walked away from an illustrious career doing that.
Wow.
And became a spiritual teacher. And he was very Jungian and a master at working with dreams, and also had a profound understanding of shadow. And the mushroom will reveal shadow. And so I have a one-on-one practice. I am a shamanic therapist, and we go deep very quickly. Very quickly. We cut to the chase and go there. And so it can be very, radically, it's evolutionary kind of inner work.
Shonagh, how does a session like that go? I'm just so curious how you lead people into that.
Yes. Well, it's different with everyone. And I will tell you, I do a lot of work via Skype also, because I have people I work with in Australia and South Africa and New Zealand. And so in any case, we start with just talking, because I always ask them questions, right? So what are we doing here? Why are you here? And I will say to them, listen, I'm going to preface this question with the fact that there's the surface story of why you're here. And then there are the far deeper layers that we're not even aware of that have brought us together in this moment. So let's hear what is going on. And so they will share with me their situation. And because I've always been very intuitive, I was as a child, I had claircognizance, which is the knowing, and I had clairsentience, which is the feeling. I just had that. I'm Celtic, and that's pretty common among those people. In any case, so with all the work with the mushroom, I have these, I call them beings that work with me. And this, of course, is very common, with, to use that word shaman, whatever, medicine person, wise woman, right? Many, many names. All right. So I'm listening beneath and between their words. And I am listening, and their story, really what they are saying, is simply symptoms. It's symptomatic of something that occurred far earlier in their childhood. The first 7 years are very powerful. Rudolf Steiner spoke about that. Very, very powerful. Not only is this young being developing, their energy field around them is developing, the chakras on their body, everything. And so they're like a little sponge. And so if the family situation is dysfunctional, then of course there's imprinting. And then I also explain that, we are the microcosm of the macrocosm. And so you could think of the macrocosm as, all right, we return here many times, some people say. I tend to agree that there is this process of reincarnational process. So we just play with that. Well, then, if we're the microcosm, over the course of our lifetime, we die many times, don't we? Because you are not the same personality you were when you were 4 or 12 or 28. You're very different. And so if along the road you were traumatized or damaged or whatever the story was, that then you just keep growing. You keep moving beyond it. And if that wasn't addressed and explained and healed and integrated, then that young one, in other words, where do those personalities go? They simply recede into the deep psyche or shadow, and then they take the wheel, don't they? When we get triggered and, we leave the room and some other part of us comes in and we go into reaction, whatever that may be.
Right.
And so I will go into explanation of this, and we will talk about what occurred when they were younger, and at the same time, so I can be very psychic or intuitive or whatever you want to call it, and I can pick up even more, and point that out. And so what that does, I think of it as a kind of spell breaking, because we come in, and I explain we're all spellbound. I think this whole show we're in is some kind of massive, ancient, profound mystery spell. And so it's about breaking the spell. And so spell only works if you believe in it most of the time. And so we show up, we are born. And I call that, we come in as the original issue, which is a commercial term because, believe it or not, I also study law and commerce, which I find to be one of the most esoteric studies there is. In any case,
I agree.
So, yeah.
It's so fascinating. It's spiritual too.
Entirely.
Yeah.
Allah is ecclesiastical, and that Bible is not what they have told us it is. Oh my God. In any case, so the original issue, that's a commercial term for when a bond first shows up on the market.
Right.
And, interesting, because anyway, we are bonded in a way. That's a whole other discussion.
Oh, definitely.
So this baby shows up with all of this energetic potential, and we have all the magnetics we're carrying of the positions that the planets were in the moment of our birth. We're holding all those magnetics. We are like the physical manifestation of that moment in time, which will never be again. So, this notion that we're all the same is fallacious. We're incredibly unique.
So you're saying, just so I have you straight, so you're saying our physical, corporeal body is the sort of like the frozen essence of what's going on at the time of your birth. Like it's
in the stars.
Yeah. So your body is the representation of that, not necessarily your psyche or your soul or anything like that.
Well, your psyche very much, takes on those patterns as well. In other words, where we show up and certain patterns are activated when we show up, and with all of that, there's extraordinary potential, and then of course we are raised by folks who are they themselves under the spell to whatever degree, and we are imprinted, and then we learn to cast our own spells. And I always say, the ultimate wand is the mind. That is the ultimate wand. And it's no accident that, the system wants us in school at such a young age. And I spoke with one woman who's a homeschooler who said there's some study done that said, the imagination gets really shut down in kids markedly by the time they're 8 or 9.
Really?
Yeah, I thought that was interesting, and I should get the study. I don't have it, but it makes sense in that it's very almost public schools become very militaristic. So in any case, so we sort of fall into the spell. We learn to kind of cast our own spells, but we don't really necessarily know how to access this extraordinary. I used to call it a biocomputer. I used to say the brain or the mind is like a computer, but the beings that I work with corrected me at one point and said, "Dear, no. The computer is like the mind." And they said the computer is actually a crass second to the mind. And which is interesting because, the computer is, of course, allowing us to do what we're doing today. And it's fantastic. It's a double-edged sword, of course, because you spoke earlier, Justin, of how incredibly addictive it is as well. And the information superhighway, so much of it is tampered with and nonsense. And, so it's a bit like, kind of traversing the Wild West in a way. Yeah. But in any case, so this is very long-winded, but
no, we love it. Keep going.
Okay. So in any case, so at some point we have to break that spell so that we can access more of that potential that we came in with. Because we get so captivated by the spell, and there are so many diversions, and then even our own personal story is very captivating.
And we get stuck in it, don't we?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, it takes, how sometimes you just talk with someone who's just very wise and very astute, and they will point something out to you, and by golly, you've got the aha moment. You've got it. And so this is what I do. In addition to, of course, I will do soul retrieval work, which is very profound. And that is based on the idea that someone experienced a trauma, it's unhealed. And so at some point, they will work with a medicine person, a wise person, a shaman, whatever. And that wise woman will go lie down and go into a different state of consciousness and go into the, essentially, the realm of the deep psyche, and psyche being the Greek word for soul. So into that mysterious place and seek out that lost soul part. Because, when people experience a trauma, it's like a part of them, retreats. And you'll hear people say, "Oh, when he died, a part of me died with him." That kind of thing, right? And so, we want that part back. because that part needs healing. And so I have done that kind of thing where, for instance, I'll give you an example. And so you bring that part back, and then you, if the person is present with you, you sort of blow it into their body. And if they're not present, no problem. It works just as well. And I can sort of do that, using just intention. And then I will, tell them, share with them, what I found and what happened. And, I worked with a woman whose father died when she was 11. And she's had really difficult relationships with men ever since. And, they often leave her. And in any case, so we did a soul retrieval. And in that soul retrieval, I found her and she was bereft and she didn't want to come. And then I felt this male presence next to me. And the male presence handed me a pocket watch. And so I gave it to her and she calmed down. And so then I was able to bring her with me and return her to this woman. And by the way, this was over the phone, not Skype. I didn't see her face. We're just talking. Wow. And when I told her that, she burst out crying and said that she got two things when her father died. She got his Bible, and she got his pocket watch. But a year before that, she lost it. She lost the pocket watch.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So that was huge. And then she also said, I'm trying to remember because this was a number of years ago, but she said something like, "This is wonderful because then now I can have a relationship, with a man, and I can really, see my father in him and blah, blah, blah." And I said, whoa, no. I said, "Sweetheart, your father made himself known through me to you in a very pronounced way. And so this is a separate relationship." So in other words, now the man that you fall in love with, the next man, won't have to carry the father for you. No, you have your own separate relationship, and it is a mystical one. And then this man, you can see him for what he is, and you can have like a true adult relationship. In other words, also, it's like the young one in her was in relationship with those men. You see? So if that young one is unhealed, she or he takes the wheel. And my book focuses love and spirit medicine. It's very vulnerable. And you know what? This is how women share. In other words, there's tons of books out there. I read every one I could find, mostly written by men. It's very, the psychedelic world is very, male dominated. That's shifting now. And I love my brothers. I love the guys. I don't identify myself as a feminist or anything, but I would like to see the medicine women, have a voice here.
Yeah. No, it is a bit strange when you come to think about it, because like you said, it's all men,
Yeah.
It's just very bizarre. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and when women share, we tell it. And so that's what this book is, but it really explores relationship. And for the guys, it's often, in a lot of these books, it's often, very sort of intellectual exercise. And I get that because I do really like that kind of thing. And, there is this very human element of relationship, and life is relationship. It is relationship with another. It's relationship with the world of nature. It's relationship with yourself, and, perhaps relationship as well with the unseen worlds, some kind of spiritual peace. And so that needs to be explored, because I tell you, people are so damaged. They're so unhealed. And what happens? They enter into relationship, and maybe they get married or not, and they have children. And they bring children into that relationship, which is dysfunctional. And, you make a mess.
Well, and the thing too also is that the relationship, people just think, oh, man and woman, but every sort of entity and philosophy and book and what sort of energetic, anything that you bring into your life is attempting to have a relationship with you. So if you're watching the news and you're watching, Fox News and CNN, and, these people are trying to develop a relationship with you, and they're trying to get you hooked in and sucked in. Or same thing with really just anything that you bring into your sort of consciousness is, we think of it as not necessarily having, a personality or something like that, but all of these things are trying to have a relationship with you. And,
whether it's fear or love.
Yeah. Fear is trying to have a relationship. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is. And it's, in our world right now, as I said, it couldn't be less natural. And I actually don't even own a television. I don't watch television. I love to read, and I will use the computer as a research tool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then as a writer, of course, I'm always writing on this thing. And then, we really desperately need that balance, that stabilizing balance of nature. It's very important.
Mm-hmm. So, Shonagh, I got to ask you, when you did your series of mushroom experiences, walk us through where you got the mushrooms, how did you take them, and did you lay down? I know I'm watching True Hallucinations about Terence McKenna's trips to Ecuador in the jungle in South America, and when he first was taking them, he just sort of kept hiking through the woods until finally he couldn't hike anymore. But walk us through how you did that.
Okay, all right. By the way, you will like my book, because I go to Belize and I do the medicine in Belize. So there's a whole story about that.
I'm really excited to start it. We've got so many things going on, but I cannot wait.
I know. Of course. All right.
It looks great.
All right. When I would do it in nature, okay, so for that first year, I do it differently now, but that first year, all right, so where do I get them? I live in the Pacific Northwest.
Oh, well, there you go.
Very moist.
They're everywhere.
Lots of forest. You learn how to identify them. You can find them. And there you are. And so that's as much as I'll say about that.
Okay.
And so I would then skip dinner and do them in the evening. And so find a spot and just prepare the spot, put down comfy, blanket or sleeping bag. You get cold, especially at night.
But did you say you dried them first?
Oh yeah, you could dry them. Yeah. I mean, you can eat them fresh, but it's a different amount. You have to eat way more because they're moist and they're
I see. So how long did you dry them?
You just put them in the dehydrator overnight.
Oh, okay. And then do them the next day.
Yeah. Well, or just put them in a paper bag or whatever and tuck them away somewhere.
Okay. So you got your mushrooms, and then so at this point in this experience, you're talking about doing them at home.
No. Just they make themselves accessible, shall we say, and right. So go out into the woods, and so this was private property, so no one was going to be around, and
nice,
safe, yeah.
Yeah. And not only that, don't forget too, it's very hard to find a place in nature where you are not hearing, planes roaring overhead or cars driving by. Mm-hmm. And, this place is just superb. It's all you hear is the sounds of nature.
Wow.
And then I would always do ritual. And now, we all do ritual. It's a very human thing. Mm-hmm. People might have a ritual with their tea or their coffee or their smoothie or whatever it is, in the morning, and they like to do it just so, and they put just the right ingredients, and they like to sit and maybe open their computer or whatever, you know what I mean? Or just whatever. That's ritual. And so I would do a little ritual before this where I would burn sage, or copal, which is a tree resin, and I walk a circle around where I'm going to be lying down, and I walk it 3 times. Numbers are just very important, and we won't get into all of that today, but 3 is the highest number in magic. It's a very, very powerful number. And I will tell you, as a quick aside, in law, they are obsessed with the number 3. And there is even a book written around the turn of the century called Trichotomy of Roman Law. And it delves into, because our legal system really is Roman. Rome really never went away. In any case, they're obsessed with 3.
I wonder if that's why that whole term, third time is a charm.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, 3 strikes, you're out. Going once, going twice. Sold.
Yes. Okay. Interesting.
Yes.
It's funny how it infiltrates into our culture, and we just don't ever think about these things,
Well, correct, because most people aren't thinking, because that's been shut down,
They're
and they are not using reason or logic.
Right.
To really see. We have to slow down. We're going way too fast.
Yep.
Way too fast. And I will also say 3 or more times indicates a pattern, and that says once is an accident, twice is a coincidence, 3 times is a pattern. So good to know. In any case, so I walk around 3 times with the sage, and I just call in the nature spirits, the teachers, the guardians, and just request that any tricksters or troublemakers remain outside of that, and what I say goes. I mean, it's that simple. And then I will lie down. I'll sage also the medicine, and then take the medicine and just lie down and wait for it to kick in.
And how long does it typically take for you?
It depends. Usually around a half hour, I find 20 minutes to a half hour.
And then how long does it last in your experience?
Generally around 4 hours.
4 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will tell you, I don't like to do anything out of a laboratory. I don't trust the laboratory. I know there's people who swear by LSD and all of that, and that's all well and good. But I am a big fan of Mama Nature, and I see the mushrooms, whether they are psychoactive or these beautiful medicinals, as like the nervous system of the earth. And I have found in everyone that I speak to who is really just has a devotion and a great regard for the mushrooms, comes into deep connection and awareness of nature and the peril that she is in, and is inspired to help in some way. Everyone I talk to who works with this kind of thing wants to do some kind of something out there, to sort of assist this mess that we are currently in.
So when you're going through the experience, first of all, I think people say to not eat, right? You skipped a meal. Some people say to wait for 5 hours or whatever. But you're basically not supposed to go into the experience like this with a full stomach, right?
No, the first time we had a nice chicken dinner, and then
and then you enter into...
and then we did it about 4 hours later, but I really felt that chicken dinner, and I did feel nauseous. And we'd made a tea, and it just, it was a profound, incredible experience. But, after listening to more McKenna after that, I was like, all right, let's skip dinner and just eat them, and there are people who don't like the taste, and you can always put them in honey. That's delicious. And that's what the Mayans did. The Mayans, and the Aztecs would take the psychoactive mushrooms with honey and also cacao. And, so you can do that. I just, eat them straight. And so, and I just lie back and then, have an experience which is deep, your eyes are closed. It's deep interior peace. And so it will begin for me with those extraordinary images. And we know there's many fabulous artists out there who love to paint, with that kind of inspired vision. And so there are these just shimmering images. And then it goes more into like a kind of inner journey where I'm not seeing anything, but the whole thing is felt. It's direct. It's amazing, where I am in conversation with these different teachers.
Have you ever done, a lot of people have talked about this. I've never done it. I've never done any of this stuff that you're talking about, but I feel particularly called to, and I know I will at some point. But we have done float tanks, and there have been people who have talked about combining those two. Have you ever heard about that or had any experience?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I've talked to people who've done it. It's been incredible. Now, I will also say I've talked to people who've done the float tanks with no psychoactives, of course, and had some pretty wild experiences. Because, of course, if you've done the float tanks, right, that takes you into such a deep state, deep.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's very, very incredible, because you're for people that are unfamiliar with a float tank, or sometimes they call them sensory deprivation. It's basically laying down in a tank. The ones we go into are quite large. They look like kind of a meat locker, and it's filled with about a foot of water or so, and it's about 600 or 800 pounds or 1,000 pounds of salt. So the water is the same temperature as your skin, the same temperature as your blood, and the air is the same temperature as your body. And so essentially what happens is you lay there in complete and utter darkness, and all 5 of your senses are completely gone, because you sort of melt into the liquid that you're floating in, and you don't have to try to float. You just float there with no effort. It's like the Dead Sea. And so when you shut down all 5 of your major senses, you have nothing left but to go inward. And people have seen some crazy things. I've had some experiences doing it. So has Kate. Heard voices, seen visions. And it's a profound psychedelic experience without even taking a mushroom.
That's right. Now, Freddie Silva, who is one of the world's leading researchers on crop circles and ancient sacred sites, he has a book out called The Lost Art of Resurrection, where the ancients in those temples, there would be underground chambers, and they would train for this, and they would do something like that, where it would be completely deprived, sensory deprivation, and they probably did take some kind of psychoactive to, take them into that state. But then after that, they were essentially going into the death realms, if you were, and had to learn to traverse that and find their way into, the place of the gods. And they would do this, begin this at sunset, right? So it was like a death and rebirth. I mean, what you are speaking of is like a death and rebirth process, really, where, you're so deep, and all of your senses are just sort of dissolved. And where are you? And and then these people would come out of that either 3 days later or the following day at sunset, and with this profound experience. And Plato even spoke of that. This was a huge, potent initiation of a number of people, and then they considered the rest of the sort of folk out there to be kind of the walking dead, in that you're not really alive, in other words, unless you've had that death experience. I mean, it is very rejuvenating.
That's what I love about, the first book that kind of turned me on to the ideas of all of this death, birth, rebirth, or that cycle, was The Women Who Run with Wolves, But that was such a profound book in my life, because I think we just get so caught up in the everyday, just living and striving. It's like I hadn't even gone into that realm in my own spirit before. I think when that idea hits you for the first time, it's kind of like something you'll never forget, like one of those momentous, you can't go back, kind of moments. And I just feel like, gosh, we are all kind of walking around in a trance. And when you have something, whether you read a book or, lay in a float tank or have an experience like you, when you have a touch of it, it's really hard to go back to, quote, normal life, isn't it?
Yes, great point, Kate. It changes you forever. And the very sad piece here is we have lost our mythology. And we have lost touch with our ancestral stories. And we have a nation of people, especially in this nation, which is this melting pot. But it's like most people have lost touch probably, a couple of generations ago, really, with their whole ancestral piece. And so it's like sort of, what is your touchstone? And we used to tell stories, and we had our sort of creator gods and goddesses, and nature spoke to us. And, this is not an idealizing, because there were, have always been problems on this planet, but people were, very connected to their mythology. And Jung spoke of that is a kind of magic, that is an intrinsic part of being human. And in this culture, okay, great metaphor we're sterile. And so let's just look at what's going on with everyone's gut, because I am way into the food, as you guys are. I'm a Weston A. Price gal. In any case, so everyone's gut is totally and utterly compromised. All of that great beneficial bacteria, that flora, has been blown out because of these antibiotics that people take. And the antibiotics are in the food, in the CAFOs, that these poor animals are raised in, right? And so those antibiotics come in and they destroy all of the diversity, the beneficial bacteria, and kind of create this almost sterile environment, which then is perfect for opportunistic pathogens to come in and take over. And so I just find that a striking metaphor, because I look at our what is going on in civilization today, and you have people who have been completely sort of indoctrinated into this industrial mindset. Now it's a technological mindset, and the sort of magic, the mythological, all of that is poo-pooed and cast out. The shaman has been cast out. The medicine woman, the midwives, all of that cast out in favor of this very, very high corporate I don't know, the corporate mindset that we're in. It's very corporate. It's very commercial. There's a price on everything. And
we've essentially just replaced the shamans with modern day pastors, police officers, medical people, doctors. We've replaced the shamans with all those. System. Yeah, it's a system that's all working together. But like you said, it's very it's very
sterile.
It's very sterile. Yeah, that's right. It's very sterile and structured, and there's no room for being like essentially like a master herbalist would be someone who would take the medicines and listen to someone's issues and concoct some brew that would help the person based on their situation. But essentially, like pharmaceutical medications are the same thing. They're herbalists, but it's just really, really bad herbalism. Well,
there's no room for spirit. It's like I feel like that's missing from everything, whether it's medicine or an experience or a family unit or a story that's lost in our. That's right.
There was a fellow in the 1500s, Paracelsus, who was one of the greatest physicians ever known, and he would thumb his nose at the establishment. And he did work in the university situation for environment for a while. But he had said, do not feel ashamed to sit with the common folk and learn from them the folk medicines, because back in the day, the common folk were, they knew which plants would heal this. And not only that, but Paracelsus understood that, the as above, so below, that depending on the time of day, plants change and certain constituents are available in a plant in the morning when it's loaded with dew compared to later that afternoon when it's a bit more dried out from the heat of the day. And that depending on where the moon is, if the moon is in a water sign, then there's going to be more water in that plant. If it's in an earth sign, maybe this is a good time to get the roots. I mean, he understood all of that, which, science today also sort of poo-poos. And so, the system, what the system gives us, the commercial system, it's an overlay. In other words, it's an overlay. And so their food is not food. Their medicine, granted, if I need stitching up or, bones, whatever, great. But in terms of, disease or illness, maybe get your, find out sort of what's going on and then get the hell out of there and actually go about the business of actually healing yourself.
Right.
And nature there's a cure for everything in nature. There truly is. And then I will also say, that as much of a mess as things are, because I study law, and for every liability, there must be a remedy. And that's also the rule of the two, or the rule of the coin. In other words, we are in a universe of polarity. We have positive and negative charge. You can't have life without duality, if you will. I hear of all these sort of non-dualists, and I'm like, all right, best of luck to you.
Right.
We live, here. It's dualistic.
Right.
And so, in other words, that means, of course, if we have the world of the seen, then we must have the world of the unseen. If we have a problem, we must have, on the other hand of that, the solution. And we have nothing but solutions. But of course, we have to get out of the box, the mindset of that. And I think ultimately connect more with that ancestral wisdom, because there's just so much there to tap. And there's so much within the physical body to tap. I mean, as much as I like to travel in these other realms, I love being in a body. And the beings that work with me said, there is a user's manual with this mind-body complex that you are inhabiting. You've not been given it, but some of you are going to figure it out.
Yeah.
Some of us. Ooh.
I like that. Some of us will figure it out. So they'll release this sort of knowledge to a few people, kind of thing.
Well, it's out there. I think it's self-selective. It's out there, right? But look at how, you guys and I, we know amazing ways to restore the body to health and to keep it there. And, challenges will be thrown at us, but, we're pretty quick on our feet and we can, we're able to do what we need to do. Others, you can be standing in front of them holding the cure in your hand and they'll show you to the door.
How many times has that happened? I bet all of our listeners are saying, I've done that with my mom, my dad, my brother, my sister.
Oh, yeah.
All of us have had those experiences.
Right. And that is the power of that indoctrination.
Really is like there's scales over the eyes, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's the spell.
It's the spell. Do you think it's possible, Shonagh? I'm just so curious for people to come to, how should I say this, like a fullness in their life with healing in their journey without experiencing something like a sacred plant? Is that?
Oh my goodness. Of course. This is why I said it's not for everyone. At the same time, nature makes so much available for us. And so for those of us who want to tap her visionary offerings, they're there. And you can sit, just go out into nature. Yeah. Just go out there. You don't need any kind of psychoactive. Mm-hmm. And, you have the power of your mind, that extraordinary wand that, just has been so misused. Mm-hmm. And sit by a tree. The trees, my God, since I've been working with this medicine, boy, the trees speak to me. And just sit by a tree. And I've done this many times, without the medicine, particularly when I was healing my grief over the loss of this relationship a few years ago. And they would speak to me poetically. And you know what? When I was a little girl, I used to sit in the arm of a tree in front of my house. And I didn't, know it at the time. I just felt very close to that tree, but it would speak to me, but it didn't speak in English, in other words. But we had a friendship.
An understanding.
Yes. And so people, and of course you hear of these tribal folk who will go on walkabouts. Where do they walk about? Not New York City, right? They walk about out in the desert or in, nature, the big forest, whatever. And they have experiences there. So nature will initiate you.
I think that it's important to connect with nature as much as you possibly can. I mean, I read a book a while back, The Vision by Tom Brown, and recently one called Soulcraft that beautifully outlines the man's ability to reconnect with nature in a sense that it's not like, like you see on TV, man versus nature, and you see this sort of fighting of nature and how can I overcome things. And in Soulcraft and in The Vision, they talk about communing with nature and being one with nature and assimilating into and feeling what's going on. Very, very much like, I know you're into Rudolf Steiner and stuff like that. And, it's much different. It's the same. It's the equivalent of fighting disease and fighting cancer and fighting this and all that versus loving what's going on in your life and working with it and asking it to teach you. And then after you learn the lesson it teaches you, then you can slowly just release it. And, it's much different. It's much more involved in the flow, I think.
Yes, absolutely. And wisdom is hard won. Wisdom is not handed to you on a silver platter. You have to go through an experience. Usually it's adverse. and the only way out of it is through it. And then you come out of that. And if you can see that as for the profound teaching that it was, then, what do you end up with is wisdom. Mm-hmm. And that's also what we need more of in this culture because we don't have leaders. I call them misleaders. We have misleaders. I call them criminally insane, actually. But, no one who runs the world in that way. Really,
right.
Okay.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And so we need that wisdom, which I also see as sort of what was cast out, that the elders, were once they held very high station in the clan or tribe or small society, right? Because, they carried wisdom and they still, many of them still do, and this, culture that we're in doesn't respect them very, very highly.
Yeah, I think you're so right. And I think that it's interesting that, like you're saying, this whole sort of charade that we have as our popular modern culture, it is just that it's a facade, it's fake, and it's just like an overlay. I like that term you used. But, we say that, it's funny because we can recognize it in other people or other cultures. And we'll say, well, the Native American Indians, look at them, they're all drunk now and they can't handle their alcohol because they're missing an enzyme that allows them the ability to break down the alcohol. Or look at the Aborigines, they can't assimilate into modern society. But in the same sense that they are unable to do that, so are all the rest of us, because
That's
we're
right.
living in this society and culture. We think that we've assimilated into it only by some sort of ability to get a job and pay rent and be responsible. But the soul is still having that inner struggle where it's just like the Aborigine, it's just like the Native American. They're just showing it in more of a physical, you can see it and how their body and how they live their lives. But internally, even though we've assimilated externally in our culture, internally we have this great struggle. We just don't fit in. We're seeing the fakeness of everything, and we're having this internal struggle. We have these issues, and so it's happening to all of us. It shows up differently, maybe in Native cultures and their inability to adapt to our modern sort of quote lifestyle. But it's happening even to those of us who are sort of living in it.
Oh, no question. And yeah, and there are, dominant forces on the planet, and the what people you never hear of, especially now, because I don't know what they're pushing right now, but there is definitely, a vendetta now. Now it's, we had the witch, and then, we have all these sort of people who are sort of targeted in culture, and now it's the white males. Mm-hmm. And God help you if you are a straight, financially successful white male. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, it's all your fault.
Yeah, I know, right?
Everything.
Right, though?
And yet, the European people, where there was a time when, they worshipped the waters, the stones, the trees. They wouldn't cut down a tree. They, unless they had permission of the spirit, they're, very, those are very magical bloodlines, and they're every bit as sort of native as, other cultures. It's just what I always say is the Romans got to us first.
Right.
And what happens is, of course, they will kill off all the elders, and then they raise, the younger ones under their, rules and their mythology and whatnot. And now you've just eradicated, a whole culture, living culture, gone. So, yeah. And that is, a crying shame. And at the same time, I see also this growing awareness in people and desire. More people are wanting to, buy land. They want to grow their own food. They want to, and a lot of people wanting to create healing, like a healing center. Mm-hmm. I see a lot of that. And I'll tell you, okay, so another metaphor, because I think, all right, when the body has cancer and it's systemic, right? You need your white blood cells. By God, you need those white blood cells. Mm-hmm. And they're white blood cells. All you have to do is like, yeah, we know what a white blood. Okay. So Mother Earth is like, she's a body. She's got cancer, or it's a parasite, whatever this thing is. It's systemic. And so then what are people like ourselves? We are like the white blood cells of Earth. And so, if your white blood cells were saying, you don't understand, my dad really just crushed me when I was younger, and I just don't believe I can do it. You'd be like, God damn it, you're a white blood cell. Don't you know? You were born for this. It's in you. You are that, right? And so this is what I'm saying, is that it is so essential that we clear our own stuff in the best way that we can, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, through food, through being with really great, thoughtful, intelligent people, shifting lifestyle and clearing that. So then, we have our wits about us. And then whatever our gifts may be, whether it's writing or speaking or, healing or, whatever it is, then you activate those gifts. And a woman I know once said, if you want to change the world, throw a better party. So nice. In other words, we see this, this system, it's an overlay. It's really very like a military industrial complex. It quite actually is. Mm-hmm. And so we're not machines. We're human beings. And so, let's create this over there, and more people will be attracted to that. And to give you a quick example, there's a wonderful documentary you can watch on YouTube called One Man, One Cow, One Planet. And it's about this beautiful fellow named Peter Proctor. I think he's from Australia or New Zealand. He's in his 80s. And he is a master of biodynamic agriculture, coming from Rudolf Steiner. And so he went to India to help these beautiful farmers there who have just been so egregiously abused by Monsanto and all those big companies to, purchase their seeds, and then they have to purchase all their inputs and all this crap, right? And then the whole thing fails and they're committing suicide. And so he said, I can't fight Monsanto, but I can teach these farmers how to farm biodynamically, which will completely transform their land and call back the life force. And that is precisely what he did. And so, growing numbers of farmers now are embracing that, because of course that guy will go to the market or wherever, and his produce is selling like hotcakes. These guys aren't stupid. And it's like, well, wait a minute, what's he doing? Word travels fast because the other stuff doesn't work. And this is the thing, the system we're in, ultimately, the way it's being run now, doesn't work. Look how sick people are. And so, eventually, that's going to become more and more obvious to people. And meanwhile, other folks are out there creating, these ways in which, we can embrace and become healthy on every level, and then, activate other kinds of technologies, if you will, to, shift the state we are in. I mean, I really do see that happening.
I do too. I definitely do. Shonagh, I wanted to ask you, what book are you currently working on?
Well, okay. So I do retreats for people. 3.5 days. It is an opportunity to work one-on-one with a good medicine woman, and we will either go out to the rainforest or they'll come to my little oasis here, and we will work. And then I'll do other retreats for groups, but I only work with no more than 4 people. I like it very intimate. Okay. And so sometimes I work with veterans. And I love those guys. They are so amazing. And they have been, you talk about egregiously abused. And they are thrown a horrific cocktail of pharmaceuticals. And they're holding a lot of trauma. And the VA is, maybe in some ways, can be great, and in other ways, just a horror show. So anyway, so I work with those guys, and it occurred to me, because I have a very vast knowledge of traditional foods, ancestral foods. I do the bone broth. I have raised my teenage daughters on raw milk, raw butter. We eat all the foods, in other words, that the system tells you not to eat. Right, exactly.
So do we.
Yeah, right. If the system tells you to do it, that's your cue. Do the opposite.
Yeah.
Right.
So, it occurred to me, there's all sorts of books on, food and beauty. And then God bless Sally Fallon has, written these amazing books on traditional foods. They're my Bibles. But I'm going to write a book for veterans. And so this is called Traditional Foods for the Wounded Warrior.
Oh, okay.
And so I'm going to, I'm writing chapters on just key foods that will assist them, give them the most bang for their buck and the time that they would dedicate to, making those foods. So talking about, kefir and bone broth and, lacto-fermented vegetables like sauerkraut, and all about healing that gut, which is the second brain. And that, food, of course, is not going to eradicate the memories of trauma and whatnot, but it will fortify their body. It will give their physical body a foundation. And of course, we know that, the brain, you have to feed the brain. And, when your gut is compromised, that will also, I tell people, look, you're not depressed. You don't have anxiety. You're chemically imbalanced. You need fat. You need fermented foods. Your gut, that we are essentially bacterial organisms. We really are. We're like bacteria and water. And so we have got to bring our gut bacteria into balance so that we don't have the brain fog, so we can sleep at night, so the body can heal what it needs to heal. So I'm writing. That's the kind of book I'm writing for those guys. And then,
wow. That sounds amazing.
I love your heart in that, because, man, I drive once a week or once every other week up to Long Beach area where my sister and her kids are, and I drive right by a VA hospital, and man, the people that even hang out outside there, you know, in their wheelchair, you just see all kinds of stuff just driving by, and my heart just breaks going, who's for these guys, you know, like, what kind of real healing, not just, hey, go in and slap a Band-Aid on something,
take a pill.
Or take a pill. It's just like, thank God for people like you with the heart for different kinds of, you know, people within our culture. So that sounds fascinating.
Yeah, well, I'm a warrior myself, and so this is my warriorship now in this lifetime. But I love our warriors, and I mourn for what's being lost. I mean, I've got a lot of Scott in me, and I'm like, I want my damn clan back. I want my clan back. I want all my badass male warriors, and all us good women who supported them, and I want that back. And of course, won't happen in this lifetime, but we can certainly, call back that spirit. And our dear warriors are not fighting noble battles anymore. They're really not. They're fighting corporate nonsense battles. And, these guys are, again, just, indoctrinated and abused. And then when they come back, they're not treated like, the noble warriors that they are.
They should be treated like,
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Shonagh, for being on the show. What an awesome
this is one of my favorites.
Yeah, this is one of my favorite shows.
Honestly.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that's great.
I love what you're all about, and incorporating mushrooms and all your other work too. Being into Rudolf Steiner and beekeeping and bee venom therapy, you're into some really cool stuff. So
we didn't even get to touch on it.
I know. We barely even. So people can contact you on your website, and I see you have some online courses there and some nutritional mentoring, some classes, and they can work with you individually and get your books and all that stuff, right?
Yes, absolutely.
That is so cool. All right, hang on the line, Shonagh. We're going to close out the live show. Thank you so much for being on, and everybody listening. We really appreciate that. This was episode 451. So if you want to go to our website and listen on the show, that's extremehealthradio.com/451, and stay tuned, because let me just bring up our schedule, because we have we're doing 3 shows a week now, which is
close out the live show just so no one's confused. We're not doing live.
Oh yeah, that's right. We're not doing live
just
shows.
in case anybody shows up and we're not around.
Yeah, we got shows, Monday, Tuesday, and Friday every week. So if you haven't subscribed to us on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, make sure to subscribe to us on there, because we share all of our shows on there. And then if you want to just be updated, you can subscribe to us on iTunes too, and or Stitcher, and you can listen and be notified every time a new show gets posted. With that said, thank you everybody for joining us. We really appreciate it, and we'll catch you guys on the next episode. Well, that was a fun show.
I'm not just saying that. That was one of my favorite shows. I find her so refreshing and fascinating.
Yeah, she's awesome.
I connect with a lot of the things she was saying.
You know what? I forgot to ask her. We just wrapped up off air with her, and I forgot to ask her about her studying law. I got it. You know what I'll do? I'll send her an email and send her a couple links of things that I know about law, and I'd love to get her
take on it.
Her take on it too. But fascinating.
She's tuned on, man. She's tuned in and turned on. She knows what's going on.
So let me get back and make sure I understand this. So she was working as a interior designer in New York for herself with her husband, or she was with her husband at the time she was in New York, right?
Sounds like it.
And then he started a business out in the Seattle area,
right?
Washington.
So moved them out there.
And then they subsequently, sometime after, broke up or separated, and then she remained there.
And loves it. I'll tell you, I love that wooded area. I love it up there. I think it's just nature. I mean, the rain is one thing, but the call to being in that kind of place in my soul feels so like refreshing. And
you know what's calling you?
Ice cream. Coconut ice cream, because I'm thinking about it.
Coconut bliss. The largest
mycelia known to man.
Yeah, the largest organism on Earth.
This is crazy. So that's in a documentary. You found that in some mushroom documentary, right? Yeah,
I've been doing heavy research in mushrooms lately. So all intellectual, sort of male dominated, just research. Just
not till today. We got a little balance, a little balance, yang.
But still intellectual in the sense that it's non-experiential. I find that I will be doing some kind of spiritual quest like that.
Good for you.
But yeah, the largest organism on the planet is a mycelial biomass in the eastern portion of Oregon.
So that's like the root system under the mushroom that runs under the ground.
Mm-hmm. Think of it like tree roots, and it's 2,000 miles long, and it's...
I wonder how they can even measure that.
I know. I wonder, and how do they know it's all connected to the same thing? But somehow maybe they feel pretty confident in saying that.
I want to live on top of that. I bet the energy of a place on top of that.
Oh my gosh.
What if that's all like ley lines are? Wouldn't that be funny? Is these
mycelial
these
connections?
Interior, like root systems running around the planet under the ground that cause these specific energies to accumulate and be a powerhouse of sorts. That'd be cool.
That would be interesting.
I want to sleep on top of a mycelia mushroom forest. Mushroom.
With the gnomes?
With the fairies and the gnomes.
With the fairies and the gnomes.
I'd be a happy camper. I might never come back.
I know, right?
Oh, wow.
It sounds pretty cool what she's up to. I like what she's doing.
I love that she's bringing the feminine aspect back too, because it is true. I mean, the wise women, the witches, I mean, they got such a crazy bad rap for a while there. But I mean, my gosh, all it is I just find it so awesome that you have these people that are gaining and trying to reconnect with the wisdoms passed down that have been lost and cut off, and they're attempting to bring that back and talk about the healing I'm sure she sees in people's lives, and let alone her own story. I can't wait to read this book. But
yeah, I'm looking forward to reading that book too.
It's going to be great.
You know, it's interesting too when she talked about how we've lost connection with all this stuff. It's so true, because we inherently create these bizarre things in our culture that mimic initiation, rite, ritual, passage. You know what I mean? We're inherently as humans drawn to that, and we create in our sort of fake structural reality situations like that, like schooling systems where you move from one grade to another.
Right.
Boy Scouts where you move up the ranks, martial arts where you move up the ranks, college where you move up the ranks, and beginning, intermediate, advanced, you know, in the job world and in the business world, and you know. But we've lost the connection with nature in doing that, you know? Like, humans desperately want to graduate and work towards something and move beyond a goal and move through this passage where you learn things. And we've just stopped doing that.
Yeah,
and I think I don't know, I think we're disconnected from that, and it shows up, and people don't know why they're so angry or so rageful or whatever. But it's because you're trying to assimilate something that's natural into an unnatural environment. It's like trying to get a fish to live on land, to get human beings to live in this weird society.
And then blame them and be like, what's wrong with you if you can't fit in?
Yeah.
If you can't survive, it's like, well, then you did something wrong. Like, you did something wrong.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The whole interview, I couldn't get that song. I love Jewel. I think the artist, words are so deep. And when you read her words, I mean, some of her songs are just so, they hit me at the core. But I kept thinking of that, the kind of her newer album.
I'm bad to the core.
I'm bad to the core. Oh, you're funny. I think of that song, My Father's Daughter, and it's all about the generations that have basically gone before her to pave the way. But there's this line at the end that I love, and she says, I am the accumulation of the dreams of generations, and their stories run in me like holy water. Oh, wow. I just got chills when you said that. Yeah. David Wolf, every time I hear it, I'm like, whoo, crazy. He says something similar, like, what does he say? You are the heirs. You are the heirs of all the generations that come before you in the foremost ranks of all time. Like all of their hopes and dreams. And, I just got chills. And all of everything they wish they could have ever done with their lives is present within you. Wow. And that's the same thing Jewel's saying. It's exactly the message, but man, we're also living this corporate existence that we don't have time to even connect to that, let alone even have that thought. Isn't that funny that when I hear a song like that, or you hear a David Wolf say something like that, it hits you so profoundly because you know it to be true, but we're just running around like ants, or we don't even have like time. We're just busy. Trying to pay bills, trying to make sure we pay rent and everything. But those things are like, wow, like truly their blood runs in us. Yeah. And everything they ever wished and hoped they could have ever done with their lives. Every fear, every dream, I mean, that stuff's ingrained, and it's just think about what we are. It's crazy. Yeah. How could people say we're not a spiritual being, or we're not all spirit? You know, I mean, it's just, it's wild.
Gosh, that's such a bizarre thought when you think about it.
Yeah.
Everything that our ancestors, if you were to track a line all the way back from, people that lived in the 1300s and in 1000 and 2500 BC, you can trace back people don't think about this, but you can go back forever. If it's, it is possible because we're here.
Right.
But to know exactly what became, what came before us.
I know.
All of the energy, all of the thoughts and stresses and worry and hope and aspirations and dreams, all of that lives within us. And we're the only, the sort of, we're sitting at the top of the genetic, blueprint. Everyone else is below us. And so,
right.
And we live in an age and a time where we can do anything we want. As opposed to, if you're in the 1200s, what are you going to do?
Right.
They
were just torch path. They probably had a lot of reasons they were in the world at that time, but they were the torch passers. And most people are content. They don't know, but most people are content just to sit here. And it's like, no, like we're the ones who have like this giant army behind us, pushing us forward onto the battle line to like do here what we're supposed to do here. And yet we just sit there like twiddling our thumbs. Like everybody's just sitting. Because it's like, I think that's when you watch a movie like Braveheart or something, you have this, even Hunger Games, you have this stirring to be like the warrior's heart. And I think it's because we might have been a warrior, but for sure we have had warriors in our line. It's like all that stuff is in us, propelling us. And yet I feel like we're so, we could get into a whole other subject, but we're bogged down by like, fluoride and bad food. And it's like physically, I don't even think we're able to sustain that kind of a life, and mentally, spiritually, we're not even aware. So it's like everybody, of course, are going to sit there. No one knows what to do anymore. But when you listen to something like this conversation with her today, I feel like it's just that she's stirring, it's like, okay, let's start stirring up things within people again in their souls to really connect with what it is we're here for. And it's like, I always think of that Joan of Arc quote, so she said, I was born to do this. I'm not afraid. That woman got burned at the she basically changed the course of, France's history.
Right.
Led a war and whatever. But that quote will never leave my mind. It's like, I'm not afraid I was born for this. It's like, what are we all born to do? Yet we're just living afraid. We're afraid of grabbing the torch from our ancestors. We're afraid of everything in life, I just find it a really exciting time that it seems like more people are seeking out the path and having their eyes opened. And now all of a sudden you have this rising up of warriors. I think it's really, really an exciting time.
It's cool, man.
I gotta go eat.
You gotta go eat? All right.
All of a sudden my stomach hit the hunger wall. I'm like, woo, on that note.
All right. Okay, cool. Well, thanks guys for listening. Appreciate it. This was episode 451. If you guys want to support us, we'd greatly appreciate that. We have a growing community on Patreon, and those are people who support us on a per podcast basis. So, if you have a Facebook account, you can sign up and support us on Patreon. It comes out of your account once a month. And you can donate however much you see fit. If you think we're doing a good job, if we're not, then don't support us. That's fine too. We appreciate everyone who just listens and shares our stuff on Facebook. But for those of you who are supporting us on Patreon, we really appreciate that. And it just allows us to continue our work. And we'd much rather have many, many people donate really small amounts than lots of people, or a few people, I should say, donate large amounts. So this way it just keeps it free for everybody, and it allows us to continue to grow and all of that. So consider supporting us on Patreon if you've gotten anything out of our work, if you like what we do, if you want to see more of it and us do better shows and more shows and all that. Patreon will help us. Thank you to all of you who have used our Amazon bookmark, and you've used that. You've purchased items on Amazon through our link. We really appreciate that. That helps support the show. And also thank you for all of your purchases in our store too. We have lots of great products on there. So if you're interested,
can you buy Shonagh's book on Amazon?
Yeah, all that stuff we talked about during the show. If you wrote it down, you can just go click our link on our website on the right hand side. There's a link for Amazon. Click that link and then make your purchase right away. And every time you make a purchase, if you do that, that'll help support us. So you can buy her book, everything. You can buy bikes, anything you want on Amazon. It doesn't have to be health related. So we appreciate that. With that said, it's time to eat, right?
Let's go eat.
Let's go eat. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Love you guys.
We love you all, and we'll catch you guys on the next show.
Hey, everybody. This is Josie, Justin's mum. Don't tell him, but I know he would absolutely be really happy if you would sign up to his free weekly newsletter. And don't forget to share this with all your friends. This is the buzzing bumblebee signing off.
That was so good.
Oh my gosh.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even if you educate yourself in the field of live food, nutrition, and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this